Hello. Today is Thursday, March 21st, 2013. I am Mitty R. Smith, a lawyer located in High Point, North Carolina. Today I will be interviewing County Commissioner Bruce Davis. The purpose of this interview, is to get in Mr. Davis's own words, his personal history, his educational background, and his work and political involvement. Commissioner Davis, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. Certainly, it's an honor and privilege that you would invite me to have this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, would you, your full name is Bruce
Edward
Ed-
Davis.
okay? And where and when were you born?
I was born March 24th, 1957, in Robeson County. And at about 8 months old, my parents moved to High Point, North Carolina. And so I've been here in High Point all of my life and really know very little about the county or the township other than visiting other family members every, occasion. But this has been my home, High Point.
Okay, Robinson County. I had never known that, and we've known each other for a lot of years. But where in Robinson County?
Well, Maxton,
Okay,
in that vicinity, Maxton, Laurinburg, or Maxton.
okay. Now, you mentioned your mother and father. What are their names?
Arletha McIntyre is her maiden name. Davis, of course. Melvin Davis is my father.
And were they born in Robinson County?
My father was born in Dillon, South Carolina. My mother was born in Robeson County. And so they met because it's right across the border there
Okay,
in South Carolina, North Carolina border. And that's where I'm the third of 9 children. And so after I was born, that's when they moved to this area.
okay. Now, you say that you're the third of 9. Could you just quickly give me your siblings' names?
Sure.
Could you do it in the order of birth?
Let's try that.
Okay.
Melvin Jr., my oldest brother. And then there was Mary, who was first daughter, and then myself. Then there was Mabel Davis, Gloria. Then there was Alan, Ronald. There was twins, Ronald and Donald, but Donald died at crib birth. And then there's Larry, and then Tony, the baby.
Okay. All right. Now, in terms of your parents, what type of work did they do?
My parents, when they moved to High Point, of course, most of the jobs were in this area, they tell me. And my father worked several different jobs until he ended up in a factory, of course, working in furniture. My mother, at that time, they did not allow Black women to work in the factories. So I'm told she worked in a chicken poultry, and that's where the Black women could work. Later on, she worked, I remember her working at a place called Flyback. That's where they made the bingo panel. That was invented here in High.
Yes, I happen to know the young lady whose grandfather, I think, made that. You're
Is
talking
that
about
right?
that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the bingo paddle,
Yeah.
the ball that I guess Flyback is where they got the name,
Exactly.
but it was right here. So I remember her working at Flyback, and I remember my father working also at Hatteras Yacht. Remember that quite well because there was fiberglass involved in that. And I remember going to school one day, and they had to take me to the office because I was itching all over. I got to the office, and my sister was there itching too. And so we didn't know what was going on. So we found out that our mother had washed our clothes with our father's stuff, and the fiberglass was in us. And so that's how I remember working in Hatter's Yacht for many years there. And then my mother got the idea that she wanted to work for herself, and she started a child care center, East Green Street Daycare Center, right here on East Green, High Point.
Right down the street from my office, where we are now.
Absolutely. And so for many years, she built that business from the ground up, from having absolutely nothing, um, to a very good business, and which provided for many families. Uh, she educated early education for many children in this area until she got sick. And my sister carried on that business for several years. And right here, and that's probably some of the reason why I found myself in child care, early education.
All right, we're going to come to that later. But just to last note regarding your mother, I know the business very well because it's right up the street from my office. She started off with one house, then a second, and then three, right adjacent to each other. So she was quite successful in that business.
Yes.
Okay. Now, you mentioned the fiberglass. Did your father have any illnesses as a result of that, that you all could directly attribute to the fiberglass?
You know, I don't know, and I don't think anybody has ever mentioned that. That's just something that really just hit my, mind. And now that you bring it to my attention, there's certainly it had to have, some effect on his health, and because of the way or what he suffered in his last years was certainly respiratory.
Is that right?
Absolutely. Never thought about that. Never tied that in until I thought about that incident, and you bring that to attention. Yeah.
Okay. Hope I haven't started anything there, but it's just an automatic thing with the types of problems people have had.
Well, yeah, and we never think about that, and especially during that time, regulations, there were none.
Exactly.
And now they're much stricter. But when you think about during those times, certainly those illnesses, if you track it back, there are probably tons of people who suffered from working in fiberglass and other airborne contributing factors.
But let's tie this thing down completely in terms of time reference. Your parents moved here when you were 8 months?
8 months old.
And that would have been in what year you were born?
57. March 57.
So it would still been in 1957. And Black women couldn't get jobs in just even the factories here. They were relegated to the chicken
plant. Yeah, where they, yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Do you remember about when that changed?
No, I don't.
Okay.
No, I don't, because again, I get that information from my mother when she was living, and father, collaborating.
So both parents are now deceased.
Yes.
Okay. About what year was it that your parents died?
My mother died, and this is 13 in 2000. So, this was 2000. My father passed for that.
Okay.
So
2010.
10 and 11 lost my parents.
Now, what type of education did your parents have?
My mother, interesting enough, when they moved to this area, she only, from my understanding, had a third grade education. But she went back and got her high school diploma, which is, tremendous,
Yeah.
for someone her age to go back. And this was many years later that she started her business, and she knew how important education was. She's told me, she shared stories with me about her going to school, the things that she had to deal with, cleaning and doing certain things, jobs at the big house. before going to school. And
This is when she was a child.
when she was a child,
Uh-huh.
yeah. And my father, went to, I think, the ninth grade. My father's mother was a school teacher, and so he and his sister were able to go. You know, you could go first grade to third grade, depending on, you know, gifted enough or what have you.
Mhm.
And so he was very good in school. But from my understanding, you know, when it came to making a choice between being in school and working in the fields, the farm, uh, you know, he had to make, you know, the parents, my grandfather, um, would have made that decision that he not go to school and continue to work.
Okay.
And so, consequently, he, I think, had a ninth grade education. Yeah, my mother went back and got her high school diploma
Here in High Point.
in High Point.
Now you mentioned your father's sister. Your father was one of two children.
My father, strange enough, my father was raised by his stepfather. He did have one brother, full brother. When his father was reportedly fell off the back of the truck working and was killed when he was an infant, or not an infant. I'm sorry, maybe 2 years old. You know, between college and what have you. And so we're talking years ago. And I guess back in those days when people broke up, they tell a different story. Well, your father did this, and I don't think that was a discussion that children would know
Yeah,
about
people didn't discuss
separation
it.
and
Yeah,
divorce and
they're
all
not.
that good stuff. And so, but what later was to find out that he just left my grandma, left for someone else. And several years later, and I'm talking in 19, um, maybe 92, he received a call from Elsie Hemingway. And Elsie Hemingway lived in New Jersey. It was his sister
Who is
from
this who received this call now?
my father.
Okay.
My father received a call. This is in 92. Hey, I'm your sister. We have the same father, Harry Davis. And so we made arrangements to go to New Jersey and meet his sister, Elsie Hemingway. So I took my father to New Jersey. We rode up there, and here were pictures on the wall of my father's father as an older man.
Okay.
You know, he had moved and started a whole new family of Davises, had children, and here we were looking at pictures of him in his 70s. In fact, he had just died 3 years
before you all went there.
before we went
in 92.
there. Exactly. Yeah, he died in about 89 or something like that. And so all of these years, my father, you know, thought that his real father was deceased, and he was raised by Rose was the last. We called him Big Apple, and his name was Rose.
That's his stepfather.
His stepfather.
Uh-huh.
So when he went into the military, his DD 214 says Edward Melvin Davis Rose. They had to enlist him as a Rose. Well, nowadays in the military, it doesn't matter what your mother's made. The only thing goes on there is what your last name is. Back then, his last name was Davis, but his mother had married to Rose.
Mr. Rose.
And so they changed his, or put both names on. And so Edward Melvin Davis Rose was his military name.
Okay, so he grew up thinking that he had how many siblings? Your father did.
He knew he had his brother.
The one who fell off the truck.
No. One who fell off.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Didn't fall off the truck. That was the story.
But who was the 2-year-old? Oh, your father was 2 years old at the time.
And his brother.
Okay.
They were like 1 and 2.
Okay. All right.
Okay. But when his father left,
Okay.
so and that's why I was saying they didn't talk about that. Your
The-
dad left.
Uh-huh.
It was your
They came
father
up
fell off a truck.
and
He was
died.
working and he's dead.
Right.
30, 40 years later, we find out
That's not true at
that's
all.
not true. And he would have never found out had he not gotten that call from Elsie Hemingway.
Okay.
And so here's a whole nother side of our family that we met in New Jersey. And so it's that's.
And your mother had how many siblings?
My mother had I think there's 13.
That I did. Okay.
Yeah. But her father also had another family with 11, and he also had another family with 5. So,
Is that right?
yes, and so that's a very interesting piece of our family history. That my grandmother, my mother's mother, was mistress to my grandfather until his first wife died.
Okay.
But they all lived on the same land. My grandfather was a sharecropper. And they all lived on the same land. My great grandparents were they indulged in alcohol quite a bit.
What were their names? What was your okay? You gave me your mother's name. What was her parents' name?
From McIntyre back to Mosby, Mosbey.
Those were your grand.
My great grandparents.
Okay.
Yes. And so the story goes that my great grandparents gave to Mr. Manning for home. There was an exchange as kind of like to work or do whatever. So she started having children. They put her in the house on the same property. We're talking and
The movie you're referring to.
Yeah, but this is the real
thing.
This
Yeah,
is
you
the
just
real thing.
analogizing it.
Absolutely. And the house that Mr. Manning lived in with his family, with the other family, the Manning family and the McIntyre family, were all brothers and sisters, but again, had different mothers. Those two were best friends. By the time she passed, when she died, she made sure my grandmother got all of her clothing. So they knew the children. They knew that Mr. Manning was the father of all the children. Another interesting piece
Do
of
you
that
have his
puzzle,
first name? Is Mr. Manning?
Ernest
Manning.
Mhm.
And this was back where? In Robertson?
This is down in Robertson County.
Robertson.
This is down in Maxton and
Okay.
that area. And so there's still a large family of Manning, large family of McIntyre. And but when they grew up and they had the school buses that would come through, the Mannings were allowed to get on the school bus and go to school. The McIntyres would hide in the fields to keep from being shamed. They would actually literally hide in the fields because they knew that they couldn't get on the bus. They only went to school on rainy days.
Why couldn't they get on the bus?
They were not. They had to work in the field.
I see.
So on rain days, they could go to school.
What were the mother's names? Ernest Manning
had his that one escaped. My grandmother that I've always known was Flora Jane Manning. She was McIntyre, and she married as Manning when, gosh, I was in the military.
Okay.
I had grown up. Miss Manning, not much of a child, just growing up. Manning, the McIntyre side. I knew of the others, Mannings, but didn't know them that well. Yeah. And so that's a part of that history that we don't necessarily talk about. You have family reunions, you have McIntyre reunions, and you have the Manning.
Do you ever go to the Manning?
Well, I've never been to the Manning reunion, but there's always been some Mannings who would come to the McIntyre reunion because we have always been real close to McIntyre, real close, and so they would certainly come, and I knew them. One of the Mannings, Pete Manning, owned the store, and we'd always go to the store, go down.
You all still have these family reunions?
We still have the
McIntyre,
reunion.
yes.
My grandmother, George J. Manning, organized our first family reunion back in '7.
And that's always held back in Maxton.
Oh, and back in Maxton. And that family reunion now, when it comes together, which is every year, it's organized. But you have to lobby to become president. You have to, we have the officers. We normally have a reunion. We travel 2 years. Then the third year, we try to come back to the home town down in Maxton. And so that reunion has grown to where when we have a dinner, it can be on a good reunion. You're having 5.
Is that right?
And
how long does it last, this reunion?
Oh, a weekend.
A weekend.
Yeah, we'll meet. We have a Friday fish fry. Then we have a get together on the actual get together. If it's on the beach, which we've done several at Myrtle Beach, we'll do some activities on the beach, and then we'll have a banquet Saturday evening, and then a prayer breakfast Sunday morning.
Okay. And coming back to your sibling group, how many of your siblings, are all of your siblings still living? Are any of them? Other than the baby, the twins?
Other than the twin who died of Pittsburgh, my oldest brother, Melvin Edward Jr., passed at the age of 40. And so that's been.
He died here in High Point?
In High Point, yeah. Had some blood pressure, some diabetes, same thing that most of us in my family is hereditary. That we be mindful of these things.
Right. Now, in terms of your early childhood, what type of neighborhoods did you grow up in here in High Point?
We grew up on, I remember Reed Street. Reed Street.
Is that the south side?
Actually, that is, Reed Street is right up the street. And I know you can't find it. Because I asked someone, and we just happened to be up at the Pillars of Fame, and I asked Bob Davis, and his white gentleman, who's been around here a long time. I says, we talked about where we grew up. I said, nobody, probably remembers where Reed Street is because I can't even find it.
Okay, for anybody who wants to start looking, you say right up from here, we are located at 1104 East Green Drive. And
Absolutely.
You're saying this is, and we're right at the corner of Green and College.
And College.
And you're saying Reed, so have they renamed it?
And that's what I asked him. Bob Davis, he says, you're standing on Reed Street. Well, it used to be Reed Street, right up the street, going from where we are, and College and Green, going west, and Elms Tower.
Okay, yeah.
That would have been Reed Street, according to him. Would have gone through there from Elm Tower before they built Elm Towers years ago.
Okay. And that's where you grew up.
In that area.
Okay.
Well, didn't I can't say grew up. Excuse me. I don't remember much about Reed Street. Then we lived on Downing Street. And Downing Street is not very far from the old Ralph Leonard.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Now I remember more about Downing Street because I remember walking to Leonard Street. Walking up Leonard Street was a red mud. There was no street. There was no paved street. And then from Downing Street, we moved to Carson Stout, the project.
The project. Okay.
We were the first families to move into Carson Stout. Um, to us, it was a move up. We had moved into, it was like moving into middle class.
Right.
Because now we had not only one bathroom, but we had two bathrooms. We had, instead of, I think there was 7 children at that time when we moved across the Stout. The last 2, I think, had not been born. Only born across the Stout. 8 of us. No longer did 8 of us sleep in one room. 2 bunk beds or wherever. But we had 2 to a room. My brother and I shared a room. Sister, 2 sisters had a room. 2 sisters had a room. And my sister had a room. So we all had, we had rooms.
So you had moved up.
Yeah, we had moved up. This was great. And so
But wait a minute. Before that, all of you slept in the same room?
as far as I can remember,
Okay.
we all slept in the same.
Okay.
There may have been 2 or 3 bunk beds,
Uh-huh.
but and we all shared the same room.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the whole family shared one bathroom.
One bathroom.
Yeah.
I remember that. One bathroom. I remember a dark house. That's but a loving house.
Yeah.
We had a very loving family. Mother and father worked every single day, rain, sleep, snow. But we always fed. That's one thing I certainly miss, and I cannot get my wife to understand that cooking 3 meals was just something we grew up with. That doesn't happen these days. I found that out. But we always made sure that we were well taken care of, clothed, and taught us a lot of values around work and ethics.
Did I remember something? Your father used to sing?
He did. He would sing in a quartet or some of the small gospel groups that would go around with my uncle and mother.
Did y'all sing in the house as like the Jackson 5?
We were the Jackson 5. We thought we were anyway. In fact, several of my siblings are musicians.
I know Ron is.
Ron is a musician. Larry is a drummer. I was a drummer. I taught him to play drums, and consequently, far better drummer than I ever was. But and let's see, Tony tried to sing. Tony did sing, and so we danced, we sang, we played instruments.
The girls didn't do anything. Okay.
Girls, they were lacking in talent.
Oh, okay.
But when family would come over, you get that call, come in here and dance, show them, and then we'd have to do the James Brown split and all that stuff to compete with my other cousins and all that stuff. So that's the type. It was a very great memories growing up in Carson Stout.
How long did you all live there in the project?
We lived and I probably need to do better research on it. I know through my high school years, so 4 years, maybe may have been about 6 years, and then I went into the military. So at least 6 years.
Okay. So now I know at all times that I've known the family, the family home has been out on war.
Absolutely. When I went into the military, there was a house. My father used his GI Bill to buy his first house, and my mother wanted to live out that way. She chose, and but they moved into that house. I went into boot camp in 1975, and I came back. I used to tell the joke that when I when I went to boot camp, they moved, so when I got back, I couldn't find them. You know? But that wasn't so. It was they when I got back. So it was in '76. That's when he bought that house,
And
and I had gone on to other trips.
a quick note though, you said your father was in the military?
Yes,
In which branch?
my father was in the army. He served in Germany, and in fact, he had the German occupation medal. Um, and so that year, let's see, I'm not sure of the year. My father was born in 1930, September 19, and he served in Germany.
Okay. All right. So now the family moved to Ward Street, bought a house and moved there. You didn't go up, so you only as a visitor in that house. Is that right?
Pretty much, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. Because when I'd come home for Christmas, for holiday, any holiday, um, it was definitely a kind of a stranger place, different. It wasn't uh, like it was home to me, but after so many years, it was home.
It
It
became
became home. But pretty much a visitor.
okay. Now, when you were growing up here, the neighborhoods that you were in were segregated neighborhoods. Did you interact at all growing up in your social life with white children or white people in any way?
You know, interesting enough, I did not have any white friends growing up. For all in our own neighborhood, our own world. When they um, segregated school, it started getting bused over to east that time, and over to middle school. Exactly, because we were being forced over, so we didn't understand. We were
What
like,
school would you have gone to if you had not been custom?
to William Penn,
Okay.
which William Penn was our dream to be a part of William Penn High School, because the band would march in the parade, and we would everybody would follow William Penn band, marching band. They had the best football team, and they had everything. And so we really resented that we would be going over to Northeast, and then possibly going to Andrews, Central, and so on and so forth. So we went over to Northeast with an attitude,
Okay.
plotting and conspiring about what we were going to do and how we were going to show that we just, I mean, because no one really sat down and explained to us why, in a way that was acceptable to us. We just thought that our training was being taken away from us. But after a while, we got adjusted, and everybody still stayed in their cliques. And then we had one white guy who started hanging with us. His name is Spoon. Everybody called him Spoon.
Do you know his real name?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, that's his real name. If you ask people right now, they say, "Oh yeah, we know Spoon."
Okay.
But Spoon would hang with us, and he was a real cool guy. And I was actually when I moved to high school in Northeast, they put us in Central. And High Point Central, we would, because I was in the band, we'd get along. In fact, Tom Terrell,
The
which
judge.
no,
No, not Gerald. Terrell.
The
Okay.
attorney.
The attorney. Yeah.
Yes, he and I was in high school band together,
Okay.
so we still talk about that when we run into each other. And we were kind of friends, because we were in the band, and so we had that thing our last couple of years in high school. But really interacting, there was not much interacting socially with white people where you knew their family, or they knew their family, stuff like that.
Visiting each other's home or even their neighborhood.
No.
What kind of reception did you all get at the school? If you all went with this plan, what was the reception at the school?
We got the reception that we probably deserve when you come with an attitude.
Okay.
And but again, quickly subsided. There was some bullying, you know.
You all, you all
No,
doing the
us
bullying?
doing the bullying.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we were doing the bullying, and we finally caught on that, hey, this is where we're going to be. It's not as bad as we thought it would be, because now here you are, you're going to take us away from our neighborhoods, you're going to put us in with these white people, which we had already had a perception that they did not like us.
Uh-huh.
So certainly we're not going to like them.
Okay. Now, on that subject, did your parents ever talk with you about the black-white issue, about black-white anything?
Yes, they did. Um, Not in detail as to where you would give history
Hmm.
about where black people had come from. We would get subtle hints like uh, can't trust white people. At an early age, you can't trust them. They'll tell you one thing, do another thing. Um, if the things that were happening um, in other places, uh, the bombing of the church, the four young girls who were killed, um,
In Birmingham, Alabama.
in Birmingham, um, we were not apprised to those things going on. And I don't think we had a TV at certain times to where, we were getting that kind of information. Bloody Sunday, we come to learn about later on, because there may have been a clip, a snippet or two, but it wasn't a conversation.
Okay.
The conversations we had in our home were mostly about taking care of our family, standing up for one another, um, and stuff like
Now, at your school, when you went to Northeast, did you have only black teachers or only white teachers, or were they mixed?
that. At Northeast, they were mixed. Now, at Leonard Street, before going there, it was all black
Black.
school,
Okay.
all black teachers. And they were very instrumental at being good, positive role models, making sure that you knew that you had
Now
to
you're
work
talking about the Linux.
the Leonard Street,
Okay.
that you had to work twice as hard. You had to study twice as hard. You will be somebody. You can do this. You can do that. There was a lot of positive things about being in that all black school, which went away, unfortunately, going into the schools where most white teachers.
What do you mean by that?
Well, the affection, or certainly the letting you know that that there's there's universities out there, there's a big world out there, and you belong in it, and you can aspire, you can be whatever you aspire to be. You can. There was very little.
Did you ever have any personal experiences along those lines?
That
Where the teachers at the white schools were telling you that?
Oh yeah, and it intensified actually when I went to high school at High
Right?
Point Central. Absolutely. And like I say, most of my teachers, I can't think of any of my teachers' names except for one in high school.
And who was
I
that?
remember some of the elementary school, and that's Miss White. And the reason why I remember Miss White so well is that she made it a very point to tell me that you will not be anybody. You'll be on Washington Street. Now I think Washington Street, as long as it's been, uh, you know, as far as I can remember, that has been the kind of place that they would associate, even though Washington Street was economic
exactly
for our community at one time.
Mm-hmm.
During my time as a high school student, it had gone down.
Okay.
And that was kind of like that was a slam or a put down for someone to say, you will be hanging out on the corners of Washington Street.
And Miss White was a white teacher.
A white teacher. And so the reason why I remember her name so well is I said, I hope that I live to see the day that I can prove her wrong, that I will be somebody. And so that pretty much set my course in challenging to make sure that I was somebody. And so everything I've done has been purposefully trying to let Miss White did me a
Did me a
favor.
favor.
Yeah, she did me a
She
favor.
meant it for bad, but God meant it for good.
Absolutely.
Do you remember what grade you were in when Miss White told you this?
This was the 10th, 11th, oh, 11th.
Now, you mentioned Mrs. White. Do you by chance know her first name?
No, I do not. I wish I had it, but I know it's Mrs. White.
And how many years were you there with Miss White?
At least 2 years.
Of
It
your-
may have been 3 years. My whole high school. She had been, my understanding, at High Point Central forever.
Is that right?
So she's certainly well known in that community. She had been there 10, 15, 20 years or more.
So she was a kind of older lady when you got there.
Absolutely. Yes.
Did you by chance keep up with her in any way?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No reason to keep up with Miss White. There was no love lost there. And again, she's the only teacher that I can really think of by name.
Uh-huh.
And like I said earlier, she did me a favor, really, by telling me that I will be nothing but on the street corners of Washington Street, and it was simply because of I was doing what boys do. I felt like if we were playing and joking a little bit, I was never disruptive. I was very respectful because my parents taught me to be respectful. I never disrespected any teachers or any adults. That was just not even, that's unheard of.
Did she ever indicate what kind of work she thought you might do? Digging ditches or something?
Oh, well, yeah, that type, or anything, yeah, that I would, be, well, no, she said you'd be doing nothing. But in fact, digging ditches, I'm glad digging ditches and on the corner, doing nothing. In fact, I don't recall if she said it, but insinuated that I would be a wino on the street corners. That's pretty much where you'd be a wino on the street corners or digging ditches. And I took offense to that. I never spoke to my parents about that. It was one of those things. It's another day. It's the same old thing that you get from these types of teachers, who just are not there to talk about success. And we had guidance counselors in school. Guidance counselors in school, from my remembrance, were like truant officers. You didn't see the guidance counselor until you messed up. The guidance counselors were supposed to be there to say you need this credit and that credit, so you graduate and you can go to college. Or here's a Pell Grant, here's a this. I didn't know what Pell was until I was an adult, way gone into the Marine Corps. Didn't know anything about any scholarships or opportunities
to help you along the way.
To help me along the way.
Well, on that subject of school, what kind of student were you in elementary school and right on through?
Elementary school, I was a good student. Always had good grades. In middle, I started falling off with my grades. I like to say that I never performed at my highest, because if you performed well, then you were out of the clique.
Really?
Unfortunately, if you made A's and B's, then you kind of geek, you kind of square, you can't hang.
Even then, and when you were in school?
Even when I was in school, when I left, like I said, when I left the all black elementary school. And it probably had a lot to do with growing up, and how that thing is, you get to smelling yourself and you think you're grown. And you want to hang out. But I was never D's and F's. Never low C's. I could not study and get a C+ or B, and that's where I would fall. Because I knew my mom wasn't going to have it. She wasn't going to stand for D's and F's. And so I don't know if I ever brought home a D or an F,
Uh-huh.
but I'd
You
push
could
it
have been
on.
up there with the A's easily if you'd studied a little bit. But you were just
I was just right there hanging out with the fellows, and
okay.
making sure that I did enough. In fact, I think I looked at my old high school transcripts, and I graduated about middle of the pack.
Okay.
I was comfortable, middle of the pack, and so never a disciplinary problem. Never gave anybody a problem. Uh, just kind of did my thing. And, yeah.
Okay. What was the first national event that you can remember having any impact on you or people around you?
National event.
Be it good or bad event that you remember grown people talking about or you all discussed it.
Um, Watching uh, folks being beaten, billy clubs, water hose, um, dogs, uh,
The civil rights movement,
civil rights
the
movement.
marches and all.
Absolutely, absolutely. I wanted to be in the mix. Not that I wanted to be hosed down and beaten,
Mm-hmm.
but I was too young to get into the fight. And but those are the things that I think of and can remember. Uh, the Jet magazine, seeing the face of Emmett Till, as a kid, even though that happened, in '6 or whatever, before I was
Okay.
born. It was, but Jet magazine, it was in the Jet magazine, and those things made you be careful of looking at white girls, talking to white girls,
Did your
being
parents ever
too.
tell you anything about white girls?
Nothing in particular that I can remember.
Okay.
You know, it's just, to me, it was always it's kind of taboo. But my younger brothers seem to not have a problem with it. But to this day, I'm very standoffish when it comes to white women.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very, I protect uh, my space when it comes to some who are certainly friendly and some others. But I just have that thing about me
Right.
the way I'm going.
Right. Now, I know you as a public servant goes to a lot of functions at Martin Luther King's day, holiday. When you were growing up, what do you, if anything, remember about what people were saying about Martin Luther King?
Now, my parents did talk about Martin Luther King, and they were very um, supportive.
Because all black folk were not,
I,
even though
and
you can't find them now.
because now everybody's
It
on the
was
bandwagon.
exactly
My understanding, 13% of the churches would not let him, but only 13%
would let him
would let him come to the church and
exactly.
would support Martin Luther King. But my parents always praised him in a way that he's doing the right thing. These are good things. That there's going to be change. Um, Malcolm X, uh, and I know you didn't mention that,
No, but
but
I
I
was
think
going to. I was
okay.
exactly.
I think I will head there. Um, I thought, when given nonviolence um, and movement of Dr. King, and then the by any means necessary of Malcolm X, uh, I would have chosen Malcolm X because uh, just that's just the way I felt about things.
Okay.
That after so many experiences, even today, you want to speak out, and so the nonviolent movement was great, you know, in its achievement, and but
Your leanings would have been more to
yeah, I don't know if I'm the type that could take a billy club or anything without striking back. So I would not have been effective. I probably would. Because just growing up again, I was the type who, um, very little guy, but I had to fight. You know, I had to fight as a little guy, and growing up in my neighborhoods, you had to learn to fight. I don't care. And the smaller you are, better you better be able to protect yourself. Fight. And so I guess it was my mentality I was outspoken as a young person. Um, I'd call things out as a young person as I saw them, and it's always been with me, which carried over into the military, and it caused me a few problems even there.
Okay.
You know,
But when you were in high school, what type of extracurricular things did you do?
the band and
Yeah, you
I was
mentioned the
in
band.
yeah,
What did you what instrument did you
I was
play?
a drummer.
Okay.
I played drums
All right.
and loved music, and I played football with the Tar Heels, I think, but it was not the schools. It was over here on Brentwood
Okay.
Street, just down from here, east of this place, and it was like a city league, and I was pretty good at it.
What
But
position did you play?
I played like a fullback or a
Okay.
halfback, depending on what we were running at that time. And I was young, and my coaches thought I had some good potential, but I had to make a choice between band or football.
Okay.
At my age, when I made choices like that, I had to put in what I call the girl factor.
Okay. What was that?
The girl factor. Will I be closer to women, girls? Would I be liked better if I was in a
But I would
band
think that the
uniform or
football players
football?
would have been liked better.
I thought that too, but then I looked at it. They might be liked better, but they're out on the field,
Okay.
and we're up there in the stands with the girls. And so I took that as, hey, and plus, if you get all beat up, and looking crazy, you get a brain concussion, you're not going to be any good to anybody. So it was safer in the stands. No, but really, I love music. And so I played drums, and I just enjoyed it. Um, and, the marching band, the concert band, the pep band, I did them all,
Okay.
the symphony. I love that. I love symphony, and to this day, I love it. We go to the symphony occasionally, and I fall asleep on it, but I still love it.
Uh-huh.
It's very relaxing. But music has always been something in our family, um, and I thought at one time it would be my outlet that I would travel, um, as a professional musician, and I
Oh,
did at 16 years old. This is an interesting fact, and only folks who've been around here forever would remember Geechee Robinson. Ever heard of Geechee Robinson? I played in the Geechee Robinson combo. Geechee Robinson was a musician who played just about every instrument you can think of. And he lived right behind on Washington Street. His wife was Miss Gussie Robinson. Miss Gussie was a hairdresser. Miss Gussie just passed last year, and her house is still over there on um, right on 4th Street, I think it is, and I guess somebody trying to sell it right now. But we all went to Pearson Memorial AME Church right there on Washington Street. Miss Gussie did. Geechee did go to church, and but Geechee had a band, and his drummer became ill. And so he asked my mother, could I play, because I was in the high school band, or in the band J.Y. Bell, which is very famous, who led William Penn marching band, uh, um, taught us music over at Leonard Street in maybe 6th grade was probably the first time you were introduced to me. And so I was a drummer, and Geechee asked Gussie to ask my mother if I could play the drums for her.
Okay.
And so here I was. I played in the Geechee Robinson combo, Geechee Robinson's band at 16 years old, and we traveled during the summer. They said, as long as you don't let your grades go down, we'll let them do it. 16 years old, I played uh, up in St. Petersburg at the university, Geechee Robinson combo. Played down in Myrtle Beach, Geechee Robinson combo. Uh, played at the Slane's house in Emerywood here in High Point at a
Right.
Christmas party. They probably wouldn't even recognize me now, I'm sure, but played at their home in that same band. And I remember one night we went to a place down in South Carolina, and it was a gig we had to play. And we drove back in the backwoods, and this place was a place that Geechee came out looking like he had seen a ghost. And he says, we're leaving here. And we got in that old station wagon, turned back around, drove back.
Right back?
About there, right back in the night,
Mm-hmm.
as quick as we could, getting out of those sticks. And so I never did figure out what that was.
How much older was he than you?
Oh, Geechee I was 16, and Geechee may have been 65 or 70
Is that right?
years old. Roy played stand-up bass. I know he was 72 or 73. Roy, Geechee, myself, and there was a keyboard. Can't think of his name. But Geechee blew like you would think he was Satchmo. You would think he was Louis Armstrong. He could pick up the trumpet, lay it down, pick up the trombone, go from one instrument to the next, to the keyboard, so on and so forth. And so I had that unique opportunity at 16 years old to travel. So I had that love for music, and so football really, the girl story, that's a whole different thing. Really,
I understand the girl story. I had a
yeah.
brother who decided to be a cheerleader because it put him with the girls rather than play football.
Okay.
So I'm aware. I'm
Okay.
familiar with that girl,
Okay.
with the girls'
Yeah.
accessibility story.
There you go.
Now, in terms of you finish, you go through high school. Your extracurricular activities band. Did you ever hold any offices in high school, in the school?
No.
So
Never even.
that kind of thing was not of interest to you at that time.
At that time, not of interest to me at
Okay.
all.
Okay.
None whatsoever.
So now what year are we? What year do you graduate from high school?
1975.
And what do you do at that point?
I had joined the Marine Corps' delayed entry program in March of 75. My birthday, I went down and joined the Marine Corps. I was 18. I could do what I needed to do on my own.
Why delayed? Explain that.
Well, at that time, there's two things. A delayed entry program will allow you to join while you're in high school.
Okay.
And finish high school and then go off to boot camp when you graduate.
And you were still in high school.
And I was still in high school. And I wanted to join as early as 17, and my mother would not let me join because of an incident with my sister's fiance, who was found drowned overseas in the Army. And my mother says, no, you're not going into the military. It shot all my dreams.
But what was about that drowning that made her not want you to go into the military?
Well, first of all, no one believed that it was an accident.
I see.
And during that time, there was always some tension between blacks and whites.
Okay.
Even here in High Point and all over the country, I'm sure. And so there was always that thought that something happened that we just don't know.
Okay, before we move on, you just mentioned something. The tension between blacks and whites, even here in High Point. Do you ever remember an incident or any adult having some adverse experience with the black-white situation?
A personal experience, a couple of personal experiences. There was a store called Esro Benowitz. Esro Benowitz. Yes, that's a Jewish name.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. But it was a large department store on Main Street, and I
Where?
was
Oh, North Main?
on Main,
Right up in the middle of town?
right up in the middle of town,
Okay.
close enough for us to walk to or
Okay.
what have you. And I went into that store. My sister took me into. My sister was a little bit older, and we went into that store. And the owner, I think it was Astro Benowitz, big guy, walked up to me, and we were looking at something, and his coat, and there this big gun was. And he told me if I was to touch anything, that this is going to take care of you. Now, here I was a kid.
You remember about how old?
I must have been, I bet you I was no older than 9,
Okay.
8 years old, somewhere, give or take. And I went,
And that's just
yeah,
if you touch anything.
if I touch anything. So I went and I told my mother. My father was so upset, and my mother says, "You're not going down." She knew um, it would be. There's no
No
telling
matter
what
what.
would have happened.
Exactly. Yeah.
But a black woman could address this situation. I'm later to find out, and of course, you know why. If a man was to address it, there's going to be a confrontation. My mother went there and told him that her children do not speak. And she had bought from him for years. And she was insulted with him to show her son a gun and make a threat. And so that was a time that I know. And he told my mother told me, he says that he had some black kids who had robbed him. I was 8 years old. And I was with my sister, who may have been 10 or 12. We couldn't have been a threat. But he wanted to make it a point to show me his gun and to keep me in my place.
Now, you mentioned 2 experiences. What was the second?
The second experience was my sister and I going to, uh, I can't, it was, I'm not sure if it was Cress's or one of the stores downtown High Point.
Okay.
And we went into the store. We wanted to get maybe a soda. We didn't have much money, but we were going to share a soda or something like that. And I remember it was during lunchtime. The place was packed and everything. And we stood at the counter for a long time, and they kept going by us and, ignoring us. And I'm thinking, okay, they're going to get to us. And eventually, the white woman behind the counter says, we're not going to serve you here. However she said it was very nasty.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, well, maybe, I looked around and maybe this is the busiest time. You got a lot of people sitting at the counter, maybe we're just kids. And my sister got real irritated and said, let's go. And I'm like, no, I want to get, and she's like, no, let's go. So we hurried on out of there. And so that was an incident when I put it together. Exactly what was going on was they did not serve blacks.
Okay, they thought you were in their truck.
Yeah, and like I said, the first incident was more traumatic because the gun that he showed me, here's this big white man standing over me with this big gun, saying how he would put me in my place or use, and here I was not, never thinking of stealing or taking, because we've been taught, well, not that it doesn't belong to you, and also we were told not to even look suspicious. We had to be in a certain way, when you go into downtown certain places. So I know I wasn't looking suspicious, at least I didn't think that I was looking like that. But he thought he would use his power to put a young little black boy in place.
Now, I diverted you onto those personal stories when you were about to tell me about the military and your mother not signing the papers that you needed.
Right. And what I finally drew from that was that everybody, the word was, and rumor had it, that Robert this couldn't have been an accident. There was too many missing pieces. He was terrified of water. Again, Robert Hayes was the father of my niece, Arhisha Davis, who everybody thinks she's my youngest sister because my older sister had her kind of young and everything. She thinks she's one of the sisters too.
Okay.
And but that was her father, and I had been talking to the recruiter about joining the Marine Corps, and so I walked in the house and pretty excited. I'm going to join the Marine Corps. My mom was in the kitchen. I remember that. And she says, well, they found Robert. Robert had been missing for a couple of weeks or so. And I said, well, good. You know, I've been talking to the recruiter, you know, and I'm going to go into the Marine Corps. And I need your signature. She says, no, I said they found Robert. I says, okay, where did they find him? And they said they found he's dead. He was drowned, you know. And so she was totally against her son. I was the first who was going to actually leave the nest because everybody was still there.
Okay.
My older brother and sister still at home. So I was the first, and I was determined to move out of the way because I had smaller siblings. And I don't know why I had that type of heart that if there's one less mouth to feed, things
makes
will
it
be
easier for everybody.
exactly.
Okay.
And so I was looking forward to going into the military. And so she said no. My father was like, let him do what he wants to do. My mother says, no way. This is not going to be. I'm not signing. If he goes in, he'll do it on his own. So on my 18th birthday, went down and I signed. For my birthday, that was my gift to me, was to join the Marine Corps.
Okay, now you're doing this in March, and you would not be going into when?
July.
Was there any time between March and July that you said, hey, maybe I shouldn't have done this?
No.
No, never?
No, never thought about turning back. I had two motivations. One, I've already told you that I wanted to make one less mouth to feed in our home. And secondly, the recruiter, Shorty, is what we all called him. Shorty was, not to mention how sharp he was in the dress blue uniform.
Oh, now was he short?
He was short too.
Oh, okay.
He was short too. And but he says, you know, you can go in the Marine Corps. And my scores were high enough that I could choose some jobs. You know, so I definitely learned something in school.
Okay.
I didn't have to go into infantry. I didn't have to, you know, choose some job that, you know, I could go on a little bit higher scale. He says, you got several options. And the thing about it, if you stay in the Marine Corps 20 years, you can retire with a paycheck for the rest of your life. I'm like, 20 years I can do it. I says, 20 years is a long time. He says, no, son, it's not that long. Not as long as you think it is. And I said, okay. And so I went into the aviation. And I chose the aviation. And I worked as a small turbine mechanic, worked on small jet engines. And time rolled along. Every time reenlistment time would come along, not that I did not have reasons to quit, or friends who say, I'm getting out of this thing, I'm going back to the real world. But I had a long-term goal.
Okay.
And my long-term goal was to get 20 years, you know, and retire. And so anytime reenlistment came up, I was running down there to sign the paper. And I signed for another 4 years. And I got a bonus one year, you know, probably I think it was about $6,000. Had it cash, laid it out all on my bed, and took pictures of it. You know, I was big time, and clean money. You know, so it was to me, the military was good in that sense, but of course it had its dark side too.
Okay.
That we had to
I'm going to talk with you about that at a later point.
Sure.
Now you're 18. You're in the military. I know that you were married. When did you get married?
Got married in first marriage was in 1978. It was about 3 years after going in. In fact, I was stationed in Dallas, Texas, And one would ask me, why would you live in Dallas, seeing what you had seen, and then come back and get married? Are you crazy?
What they
So
meant?
Dallas was, when here was a country boy, and I went after training and went to aviation fundamental school in Memphis, Tennessee, flew into Dallas, Texas, my first duty station. And when the plane was banking in the night and I could see lights as far as I could see, I says, this country boy can get in a lot of trouble in Dallas, Texas. And it was just that kind of place. It was a good place. In fact, I thought I would one day retire and move back to Dallas.
You had a good time in Dallas.
I had a good time. I had a good, too good.
Okay.
Yeah, more than I deserved. But anyway, I did come back home, and I did marry my first wife, who I went to school with here, and because we had a daughter, Marquisha, was my firstborn, loved her to death, and one of the stories behind that, my mother and father being from the old school, um, they didn't give us options like, well, young girl's pregnant and you can take care of her, you can, send money, you can do this. My father was like, you have a responsibility. You know, I didn't know what place he was coming from until later on. I think I've shared some of that with you, that you had to take care of your responsibility. You don't walk away from your responsibilities, period. And my mother would say, well, you could, but here's the downside. Someone else would raise your child, your daughter. Some other man would raise your daughter. And so, with that motivation and some other factors that we won't talk about on the other side, um, I chose to make that commitment and take care of my responsibility. And of course, we had two others, um, and we were married for just under 15 years, and then we separated, and I was remarried to a young lady that back during the time when I had to make that decision, the decision to take care of my responsibilities,
Okay.
um, or whatever. The same young lady that to me would have been the whatever. I was fortunate enough or blessed enough to be reunited with that person after all the travels in the military and all the things. Um, and so that's who I'm married to now. But back to the good time in Dallas. It was a good time in Dallas.
Okay. Now, so this is your second marriage, but this is a long-term marriage also. You've been married since when? When did you marry?
We've been married now 18 years.
Yeah.
Because my son now, the son from this marriage will be 18 in July. We've been married. We're getting on 19.
Yeah.
18.
Exactly. Your children's names are what? Starting with the oldest.
The oldest is Marquisha Levette.
Where is she now?
Marquisha is a school teacher in Guilford County Schools. She lives in Greensboro. She has been a teacher since she's got 14 years teaching
Okay.
in Guilford County Schools. And then, of course, my stepson, my wife's son, Chaz Boyce. Chaz lives in High Point, and Chaz works for an insurance company, Aetna. Um,
So this is the second marriage for both you and your current wife.
exactly. She was married for 4 months, and she was a little bit smarter than I was. She got out early, and I stuck around. But anyway, um, Chaz works for Aetna. He lives here in High Point, trying to move to Florida, and because he's looking for something else. He's done a great job at managing his illness, sickle cell. He's done an excellent job at managing that. But I kind of raised him. We were together since he was maybe 8 or 9 years old, and went
Okay.
through many nights of crises. so on and so forth. And then there's Tandria. Tandria is my second daughter. Tandria is 24, I think it is. Get that wrong. Um,
But if
but
you are wrong, you want your baby to forgive you for being
forgive me for being wrong. You know,
okay.
and then there's Bruce Jr.
What is she doing? What is
Tandria, she graduated. Of course, Chaz graduated. Let me go back. Graduated from North Carolina A&T State
where
University,
did your oldest daughter graduate?
from North Carolina Central University.
Okay.
And then Tandria graduated from University of North Carolina, UNCG, yeah, Greensboro.
Okay.
And Tandria works right now. She is working for in the company name, but she's in administration.
Okay.
Um, and then Bruce Jr. Is doing his absolute best to finish up at North Carolina A&T State University.
Okay. And those are
And
the children of the first marriage and your
exactly.
stepson.
And stepson. And then the youngest, Bryce. Bryce is a senior in at GTCC. He's in the middle college program
Okay.
where you do your high school year at the college.
Okay.
When he graduates, he will have 2 years of college complete. So right now, he graduates in May. He kind of slacked off a little bit. So he will have to go back for one semester. Now he will get his diploma in May. He graduates from high school. He's through it.
Okay.
He was through at high school last year at 16 years old.
Okay.
He was through at high school. But he'll graduate from high school in May. He'll go back and get that last semester, and he'll have an associate's degree. So when he goes off to college, he'll go in with 2 years of college, general studies, general education complete,
Okay.
which will save us a lot of money. So it's a great program that he's in, and he's done quite well. Other than a little slacking off, but he's a great student. He's working on his second dan in Taekwondo. He's getting ready to go down and compete one of the qualifiers that'll put him in the Junior Olympics coming up in July in Chicago. So, and he works at the Taekwondo school. So he's doing a lot of things, and he's maintaining a pretty strong GPA. He really is.
Do you have any grandkids?
I have one grandchild, Layla. Layla is 7 years old. I had the pleasure of having her at home with me this weekend, which was great. And Layla goes to school over in Greensboro, Cobb Elementary, I think it is.
Okay. Now she's the child. She's who's which of your children's?
My oldest daughter.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And that's the only grand so far. Yeah.
Do y'all have special things that you do when she comes as with you and your grandbaby?
No, make sure we keep an eye on her because she's busy. She'll sit next to my wife. She said, "Oh, I'm asleep. Watch it. We only one of us can nap. When we've had her, only one can take a nap because she's getting into something, and so she keeps an eye on us, And but she's a great child, real fun to have, and just enjoy.
Okay. Now you've that's your married life and all, and in the military working toward the 20 years. You do. What was the experience like? You said that some of your friends that they couldn't put up with that. They didn't put up with it. They had to go back out into the real world. What were your experiences from the very beginning? What was
Well, from the very beginning, recruit training, we know it's tough. It's supposed to be. I wanted. That's one of the reasons I
why did you
chose the
choose?
Marine.
Okay,
Yeah.
about that. Why did
Yeah.
you choose the Marine?
Well, I'd grown up watching Vietnam, the head count, body counts. I've seen a cousin who's in the Army laid to rest over here on Leonard Street, look, like a baby there. And I'm like, this, if I'm, first of all, I needed to go where I could have employment.
Mm-hmm.
There was no way that I would stick around here and work in the factory. So I'd dig a ditch or hang out on Washington Street. That was not going to be me. And so when checking out the military, the different branches, they had a career day over at the school. I saw the uniform, the dress blue uniform. Fell in love with the uniform. I had to have a uniform. Secondly, my recruiter was telling me about the retirement. He also told me they had the best training, the toughest training you can go through. And I'm like, that's what I want. That's what I need. I was a bit of a hothead too. Now I had a temper, and so I knew that that would probably, kind of calm my temper a little bit. And so, and I didn't mind hard work. I didn't mind it, that I was going to be treated, pretty tough. And then, but when I got in there, I experienced some things, some of the name calling, some of the things, some of those names you figure it's expected, you know, um, but some of it was not. But I took it all in as, okay, I'm going to need tough training. If we are to go to war, we were at in 1975, the fall of Saigon, I think was April 75. Now we may have moved a lot of troops out, but we still had troops in Vietnam when I went in. All of my drill instructors were right off of the combat field. They showed us plenty of pictures of the dead bodies, the things that they did, and all that stuff. That right now, today, you couldn't show it because the American public would be outraged at some of the pictures that they showed us in recruit training.
Okay.
And but nonetheless, that was the climate at that time, and training was supposed to be tough, and I was okay with it. But after graduating from boot camp and going to some of the schools and dealing, I'll tell you one incident where I received a promotion. I had to be promoted quickly because the person in my department was leaving for whatever reason. And I was a senior PFC, and they needed a lance corporal. They needed someone in charge. So I was kind of thrown in the leadership position. And so it was only proper also that I received a promotion. I was doing the work. And so I got promoted to lance corporal. And in the promotion line, everybody's lined up. And the colonel comes down through and congratulates you, pin you, and salute you, and all like this, shake your hand.
Now,
And
was that audience also?
absolutely, yes,
Okay.
yeah. There's an audience. There's everybody in the squadron is lined up. Maybe family members of others
Okay.
who live in that area or what have you are out there. And when the colonel, commanding officer came, when he got to me, he refused to shake my hand. Even though I saluted and he did the pinning, I reached out, and he quickly turned and went on. And I looked out of my peripheral. I knew what protocol called for. I seen it happen on my right and on my left. And so that's the type stuff that we dealt with, which I expected stuff from lower ranked people.
But Bruce, did anybody else make a comment about it?
Oh.
Nobody? Okay. No.
That was my own little thing, and nobody, and I left it alone. And at those early years in the Marine Corps, I didn't question much. As an enlisted person, I didn't challenge.
Okay.
I was one of the youngest gunnery sergeants in the Marine Corps. In other words, I was an E7, just under 10 years in the Marine Corps. That was in garrison or not doing wartime. That's real fast.
Okay.
In fact, when I went up for master sergeant, they came out with another rule. Now, it may not have been because of me. Maybe there were other young gunnery sergeants. Okay, so I can't claim the fame to that. But I read the order that put a specific age to being promoted to master sergeant. I was very young. I was a rank grabber. I was doing my job. I was this and that. I was first class physical fitness test. I could do it all and just very sharp. But so at 10 years, when I started seeing that type of discrimination, I became more and more vocal. And so the next 10 years I spent as an E7. So I spent 10 years was getting to the highest rank as an enlisted is E9. Only had 2 more to max out. But 10 years of my 20 years, I had already picked up E7. The next 10 years, I stayed in E7. So and I'm gonna tell you, that was so discriminating because of so many others that I trained, whites that I trained, white guys that could not do ear, and physical fitness was one of the top things for promotion or not getting promoted. Um, Again, I was a first class PFT, a 300 on PFT. I could do 20 pull-ups. I could do 80 sit-ups in less than 2 minutes. I could run my 3 miles in 18 minutes, a 6 mile minute, 6 minute mile a second. And so, but I had folks, white guys, who couldn't do 3 pull-ups, and the minimum was 3. That could not run a 3 mile if you carried them 2.5 miles. Could not do the sit-ups, no way.
But they were getting promoted.
They were getting promoted. And so there was no doubt in my mind that there was discrimination. They take a full shot photo of you. All of the information goes to the headquarters Marine Corps. They make a decision up there, a board convenes, make a decision, get the word back. And old Joe, that was a sergeant, becomes a staff sergeant. Old Joe becomes that you remember as a sergeant, now past you, becomes a master sergeant. And now he's in charge of you. And so we had all kinds of stuff like that going on in the Marine Corps and other branches too.
Now, I did a little bit of research on you, even though I know you quite well. And I read you won quite a few awards and medals. Did you win those things in those first 10 years and almost nothing afterwards, or what they spread out, or how? And what were some of those?
They were spread out. They were, of course, the Certificate of Commendation, uh, Navy Unit Citation, of course, the Good Conduct Medal with a Silver Star, which means every 4 years you had to have so many years to earn the Silver Star, which would be 5 years, close to 20 years or whatever it was. I was the recruiter of the year for the whole state of Oklahoma City, including southern Kansas. Um, and in fact, that year that I was the recruiter of the year was the first year they awarded it to 2 people. Guess who the other one was?
Some white guy.
A white guy.
So wait, now you're recruiting. There aren't that many black folk in that part of the
no. But I'm tearing them up in Oklahoma City, all the way out in the Panhandle, where white guys would love to join. When I bonded with them, and in fact they would fight for me in the bars out there in Oklahoma and out in the Panhandle. Yukon, Oklahoma, was one of my places. Yukon High School. Once I got one in, I got tapped into a football team, and all of them wanted to be around Sergeant Davis. They were all white, and they were bringing their friends in left and right. And so I, won the recruiter of the year. I put in 100 I forget the number, maybe 118 in that year, and the white guy got maybe 99. But for some special reason, and the recruiter of the year got a sword, NCO sword and plaque, but you got a sword and all that stuff, real nice. They gave 2 swords, never did that. And so those are the kind of things that you kind of look at, here we go again.
So during those last 10 years, you had to look at that goal. You had to keep your eye on the prize a lot, huh?
Oh, a whole lot. I had to say, well, 20 years we'll get here. And no matter what, they're not going to take that away.
Yeah.
And that was the only thing that I could really control.
So what other places did you serve in while you were in the military?
From Parris Island, I went to Memphis, Tennessee.
Parris Island is where?
South Carolina.
Okay.
Went to the Aviation Fundamental School. went to Dallas, Texas, was stationed in Dallas. From Dallas, we deployed to Rota, Spain, and Portugal. From leaving there, when I left Dallas, I went to Iwakuni, Japan. And I spent 13 months in Japan, where I traveled to Far East, to the Philippines and Korea, um, um, and again, mainland Japan, all that, the Far East. We spent time over there, Okinawa. Um, then from there to Beaufort, South Carolina. Um, Beaufort, South Carolina was Marine Corps Air Station, Beaufort, South Carolina. Um, went to Cherry Point, which is also aviation. Most of my career was in aviation, except for Cherry Point. I served with the 2nd Land Battalion, Light Anti-Assault Missile Battalion. Uh, uh, served with them. Then I left 2nd Lamb and went to back to recruiting, because I left recruiting for a minute. I went to Oklahoma City. I'm sorry, recruited in Oklahoma City. Then I went to Cherry Point, to 2nd Lamb, and went back to recruiting as a career recruiter.
Okay, and so when was it that you returned here to North Carolina?
I returned to North Carolina about, it must have been in about 83, somewhere about 83, 85, because I recruited at the Greensboro. Well, first of all, on up and down the East Coast, I was a non-commissioned officer in charge of substations up and down the East Coast.
So from where to where?
From Cape Hatteras down to North Myrtle Beach, and we had I think about 4 recruiting stations. I had about probably about 8 or 9 recruiters who worked under my charge, and left there and went. It was under the recruiting station, Raleigh, but then we had substations throughout the state. And then I left there and I was brought to Greensboro to run the recruiting substation in Greensboro.
Now, all these places you mentioned, your family was with you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, my family was with me when I traveled.
Okay.
And so I had that opportunity to serve again at the recruiting substation in Greensboro, and left Greensboro and went to Raleigh to the headquarters at the MEPS station, where the entry, where when they joined, they'd come to get their final screening. And so I worked as the MEPS liaison. Also worked a year, interesting enough, as the officer selection recruiter. I had the unique opportunity of recruiting all over the state of North Carolina to recruit officers. At that time, I have these flashbacks. They had a hard time finding African Americans to serve as officers in the Marine Corps. So they thought, a black recruiter, naturally.
Mm-hmm.
Well, recruiter of the year, why not? Okay, in Oklahoma City, done all these great things. So I was selected to be the officer recruiter. And I traveled from Boone to, what's the saying, they go Manteo to Manning and so on and so forth, to the universities, and recruited officers for the Marine Corps. Now, I thought, if you don't have enough black officers, okay, let's go to where African Americans are. So, of course, North Carolina A&T State University, we started going, instead of Campbell Law School and these places. Mm-hmm. Look, we need to go. I guess the recruiters before me just didn't feel confident.
Okay.
And I can almost see why, because I got, I had some serious words that came from even some of the African Americans, some of the blacks on that campus is,
That was not a good time to be talking about recruiting into any form of aspect of the military. But
no, I had a young man who said blacks don't belong in the military. And I said, who said? I was in the bookstore, and they dodged, and I kept going around trying to find them. I wasn't gonna, do anything. They were afraid to confront me with it. And so I finally, cornered him, and I said, we have a lot of history as blacks in the military. This country would not be what it is today if it had not been for the blacks who fought the Civil War. Don't you know we changed the whole tide? Don't you know that 200,000 blacks made it possible for you to be in school today because we fought the Civil War against slavery? And so it gave me a teaching moment, but it didn't do any good. But anyway, I was the officer selection team, or with the team. We had an officer. I was enlisted, and we would travel to these universities. And it was like they needed 12, 14% throughout the district. Well, we got to a point, and they were like, we don't need it. That blew me away. To say you don't need any more. So I understand there's a quota, but I don't understand there being a ceiling to that quota when you're talking about, so today you have enough, but tomorrow, what about tomorrow? And so, that clearly, again, is another one of those things where we just want just our.
But let me ask you though, why did they promote people from within to officers?
That's, it's a very good question. Enlisted to officer was very exclusive. They call it Mustanger to go from enlisted to officer. But of course, you had to have a college degree. And again, like I said, had I been smart, I would have been working on my degree while I was in, and then tried to become a Mustanger. So very few of us would have a college degree on the enlisted ranks,
Right.
probably black or white. But the ones who were able to transfer over would be white. Also, there's some history built into this officer and enlisted thing that I'm later to find out, because my daughter was straight A, my oldest daughter. And when we were looking for schools and what we would do, and she wanted to go into the military, but I said, you can go in, but only as an officer. So we looked into one of the programs that they have, the ROTC program, where you go off to college and they between your junior and senior year, or the PLC, the platoon leaders class, where you can get your training during the summer between your junior and senior year, or so on and so forth, and then you're commissioned as an officer. Well, one of the things on the application, anybody in your family been in the military? And then, anybody in your family, are they enlisted or an officer? So there's a legacy thing that goes on. So that legacy is only for whites, because, what are we talking about?
Exactly.
And so I found out that was one of because there was nothing else, because her SAT was she met the SAT, she met all the qualifications, she had everything else. That could have been the only thing against her becoming, going into that program.
Yeah. So she never did?
No, she never did. She went into a teaching fellows scholarship, where you go to school under that program, and you had to teach for 4 years after you graduate as a teacher in North Carolina. And so, so that's just another one of those many dark side of my experience in the military.
It didn't embitter you in any way?
Absolutely. I mean, I feel it now. I mean, I feel my blood pressure at a point now, and I should not be.
Just reliving it, telling
just reliving it, because it's so many internalized racism, so much we have internalized, and it has become a part of our makeup. Until when we talk about it, when I talk about it, I get emotional, because I know the things that had held me back, that had there not been those barriers placed before me.
But there's no limit.
There's no limit. Yeah. And I thank God that He has allowed me to navigate through much of that and still be able to accomplish something in life, But had it not been for those barriers, there's no telling. We could have many Colin Powells.
Exactly.
penny Barack Obama.
Yeah.
You know, if I and many others were not held back.
Yeah, there's a saying, someone said something to me years ago about the amount of talent we lost because of racism. Both not only with black folk, with women, with Hispanics, with Japanese, I mean, everybody. This country lost a lot because of racism. And I think we still suffer from that stuff. We're still doing it, and we still suffer from having lost those people. Now, so now your family is back in North Carolina for the first time after some years of traveling around. What did your children feel about coming back into North Carolina?
Well,
And your wife. This was your first wife.
my first wife, I tried to get her to stay in Oklahoma City, simply because we had a home there and I wanted to sell it. You know, part of that story. But I guess she was anxious to get back to North Carolina as well. And so um, my oldest daughter, she knew nothing but Oklahoma City, history of the Sooners. She knew all of that. She knew nothing of North Carolina. And but she was okay with it, because we left here when she was a baby,
Right.
All of her elementary school years. And my baby, my oldest daughter is dark skinned, and we had to fight that in those schools. She'd come home crying, Daddy, they called me this, they called me that. And we had to fight all that stuff. And so, but anyway, everybody accepted moving back to North Carolina. And then the other two were born here, Dandria and, well, they were born in North Carolina. Yeah,
Okay.
one born down in Jacksonville,
Okay.
North Carolina, and was born in Dandria.
So what in terms of, before we move off the subject of your children's adjustment, what place was it that they lived the longest before you came back here to North Carolina?
What place? Well, like I
I
said,
mean, your oldest daughter would
my
have been,
oldest,
yeah.
Oklahoma,
Oklahoma?
Oklahoma City. There was some, well, that she would probably remember, but she was in Guilford, also, then Oklahoma City, and back to Greensboro. But she graduated from Dudley High School.
What year? Do you remember?
Then
Now, did your wife work? Your first wife work in any of these places that you all remember?
she did work. Everywhere we traveled, she worked. She worked in jobs administrative, and she found her niche in taxes in H&R Block. She worked there, and she moved up. She moved up real quickly in tax and accounting, and so she's been in banking and all that stuff since.
And your second wife, I know, was a social worker when I first met her. Worked for Guilford County Department of Social Services.
Exactly. She had also worked at Mecklenburg as a social worker, and in Wake County when we got married. When we moved to Raleigh, she was a social worker. Because that's when I moved out there.
I don't know why, for some reason, I don't remember you all moving after the divorce.
After
you got married.
We were living there then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, now, Bruce, you've been recruiting for officers for the Marines. How much more time did you spend in the Marines before coming out completely?
After being the recruiter for the officer selection team, I had maybe 1 year left. So that was 93, 94, and retired in 1995 from the recruiting station in Raleigh, North Carolina. And we were living in Raleigh and moved back to High Point during that time.
So you accomplished what you really went into the military to do, and
Absolutely.
that's to stay long enough to
To
retire.
retire.
And so you've been getting your checks
Since 1995.
and it comes in religiously, huh?
Religiously, and we get every now and then a cost of living increase. And
Okay.
so it was, I always say that if you compared it to a person who invested money, we always say, what would it be had I invested in Coca-Cola
Yeah.
or
Okay.
or some other product when I was young, when I was 18 years old, and then invested for 20 years? Would I get this amount the rest of my life?
Uh-huh.
Well, if you equate that 20 years of military service, and I need to do that. I've always talked about it in general, like I'm talking about it right now. Well, how much money would I have had to invest to get what I get right now the rest of my life, which is probably more than most people make every day.
Okay.
Our retirement is. And so that's pretty significant.
Well, I tell you, you make it sound very glamorous, but I tell you why. Because if one had invested money, then one would only be getting back that return. But the personal investment, the personal rewards, the personal advancement, the development that you've had, the personal experience of traveling, it's a whole lot. I don't know that you could probably ever put a dollar amount on that.
You're absolutely right. I don't think you could either.
But let me ask you the other hard question. I know your daughter was interested in the military. Would you recommend the military for any young person today?
Today, I think I really would recommend the military um, as a way to reach the goals, financial stability, some things, especially from our community.
Okay.
That's the place of opportunity when you can't when the opportunity is about afforded to you. That may be the only option some folks would
Okay.
have,
That's a good point.
would be the military. So I certainly believe today that it's still a good choice.
Okay.
But make sure that I would recommend that a person get their education first. The way I went in was high school. I got that. I went in as enlisted, become an officer, which is a huge difference. I would recommend that one get their 4-year degree and then go into the military as an officer. My son, who's 17 right now, he see I have a uniform that hangs in my little war room, and it's got all the fancy stuff attached to it. And I've told him many years, get your eyes off of it. Don't even look at it until you give me 4 years of college.
Okay.
And then if you get 4 years of schooling and want the military, then we'll be looking at officers programs because that's the only way I think.
You want him to go in?
Absolutely.
But now let me ask you something, and then we'll get off this. But let's say you raised a good point, and that is kids in our community, other black kids. Let's say you've got a kid who um, does not have a criminal record, and maybe is not about to finish high school for a lot of reasons, different reasons, but he's not about to finish. Could he get into the military now?
No, he couldn't. Now there may be, and I say no in general, in there may be 1 out of 25 that they might recruit in without a high school diploma.
Is that right?
Absolutely. So even when I was recruiting back in 1992, 93, 80, from 83 to 93 or 5 or what have you, that window of opportunity has been closing for high school dropouts.
Okay.
And then in the 90s, early 90s, if you were going to get in as a dropout, you had to score so high that it would be unbelievable that you just go, you must just got bored with school because you're very smart, you're very intelligent, and so that was the only way to get in without a diploma.
That has closed.
And that window is closed pretty much to where they won't even look at you. So the military is becoming more and more elite if you think about it.
Okay. All right. So now it's 1995.
Retired,
You're
1995.
retired. You're 38,
Uh-huh.
38 years old, getting a nice check. You move back home to High Point. Before you move back to High Point, no, before we go there, did your parents ever talk with you about college?
No, they didn't.
Okay.
My parents talked to us about finishing high school. See, when you take their and I'm assuming and just looking at their level of achievement, had they got high school diplomas, that was the thing that they would love to have had. And again, like I said, my mother had to go back and get hers
Mm-hmm.
as an adult when she was, I bet you she was 60
Okay.
in
That
her
was a
60s.
phenomenal thing, though, to do it.
Absolutely, at that age. And so their thing was don't drop out of school. Get a high school diploma. A high school diploma. A high school. College was not something we discussed at our dinner
Mm-hmm.
table. It wasn't. High school diploma was what we talked about. So my children has always been the discussion at the dinner table is go to college, complete college. And so far, out of five, we've got one who's about to complete and one who's in high school have a 2-year college degree as well. So all five of them,
Have achieved that.
have achieved at least that. So that and my granddaughter, you know, there's no and I think each generation moves, to the next
That's
level.
the aim. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so we will talk to her about a master's or a doctorate or whatever, you know. And so that's important as to how what we talk to our children about. If we talk about a high school diploma, that's where they'll shoot for. If you talk about it, and on and on and on. So
Bruce, I skipped over this, and I'll go back to it now. Did you ever work while you were in high school?
yes.
What type of jobs did you get?
Well, I when I went to high school, you could actually drive a school bus.
Okay, students were driving.
Students were driving a school bus. Now, today you go, gracious, that to me is like, how do you trust a 17-year-old with this large vehicle with all these children in it? Well, apparently we were more responsible, but I drove a school bus for 2 years in high school during the school years. During the summer, I would find other jobs. I worked on a garbage truck. Had the best time of my life working on a garbage truck. Riding through town, hanging off. Riding on the back of the truck. Um, and that was during high school. If I back up a little bit, I used to go to down south every summer, and I
You're
worked in
already in the
tobacco.
South, but you
That's
went
true.
where?
I'd go further south.
Okay, where did you
I'd
go?
go to back down to Maxton
Okay.
to my parents' home, and I would help crop tobacco. So I learned how to crop tobacco. I learned how to string tobacco. I learned how to hang tobacco. Climb up in the rafters
Uh-huh.
and pass the sticks up with tobacco hanging from it. Learn to suck a tobacco. Learn as much as I could during the summer, and we'd make a couple of dollars here and there, and that was just fun. So uh, I I delivered papers a little bit.
Okay.
I do remember one job that I would not do, and although I have nothing against it, a lot of the kids would go down to the furniture market and shine shoes. To me, it was kind of degrading,
Okay.
but nothing against people
No,
who shine
uh-huh.
shoes, because Mr. Pope had a shop over on Washington Street. A lot of you older folks would remember Mr. Pope. He had a hump in his back, this big old hump in his back, and he shined shoes. And he was an older guy, Mr. Pope. And I used to go up there as a little kid, and my dad used to tell a story about how they would go to work and during the summer, and they'd wonder where I would get off to, and they'd double back one time, and I was sitting there on the little bench at the store. He said my feet wouldn't even touch the ground hardly, but I would be sitting there amongst the old men, and they would be telling things. See, back then, old men told wise stuff.
Okay.
I don't know what they tell now.
Okay.
But Mr. Pope instilled in me that it was okay to shine shoes if you own the shoes. shop. He owned the shoe parlor on Washington Street.
Okay.
And so I would never pick up a shoebox and go down there and shine shoes. And again, I hear a lot of folks, I think Bob Brown included and others, say that they would do things like this. Nothing wrong with it. It's just something I wouldn't do. So that's the only job that I stayed away from. And but I had many jobs growing up. I always wanted to make a few dollars to do my own thing.
Let me ask you something. For a moment, I want you to, I know, just speculate. What do you think you would have been doing if you had not gone into the military when you did?
And I'm not going into the military. You know, I'd hate to think because of the neighborhood that I grew up in. The things that were going on with, you know, there was drugs all around you, opportunities to sell drugs. Um, I was well liked in the community, so I could get around quite a bit. Um, that may have been an option, or working in the factories, and I detested that. I tried working as a kid. I worked in a place where they put springs, springs for bed mattresses.
Yeah.
And those springs, you take this big bundle of wire, which would feed into a machine. That machine would take that and coil it, and it would come off at 200 and 2,000 degrees, or whatever it was. And it would cut it, and it would stack them, and you would pick them up with gloves and put them in this tray to stack them. And I would burn holes through those gloves and through my fingers, you know, trying to do that job. And of course, you know, if you spill springs, you got 1,000 springs going on everywhere, and then the line jams up, and the person down the line, he's, you know, angry. The boss is angry, and so it would throw the whole factory out of kilter or whatever, the, you know, the whole process. Yeah. And so the pressure there was like, this is unbelievable. How do you do this? And then I was working through the night, you know, the graveyard shift, because those plants would run continuously. You know, very seldom would that machine, never shut down. And so I learned early that factory life was not for me. And so again, had I not had the opportunity to go into the military, I wasn't going to do the factory. But I like being able to do my own thing. And what I mean by that, buying my own clothes, buying my whatever, and I wanted a car. I wanted all the things that everybody else had. But I was very independent. And so I think the military was a good choice considering some of the things that I could have once I narrowed down to what I was not.
Now, I remember you telling me the story of you almost ended up doing what Miss White said you were going to do. That's dig ditches.
Well, not quite.
Okay.
You see, I almost ended up doing it. Let me. What I did, I thought I was getting a job at Silver Knit, which is a hosiery right here in High Point. And my father's friend who worked at Silver Knit got me the job. And certainly didn't want to disappoint my father or because his friend who helped me get the job. But when I walked through the plant, there's a young man who couldn't have been no older than I was, maybe a year or two. And you know, for some reason, I got into this dream that one day I'll work my way up to be in one of these offices up. Certainly one of these would be mine. Again, very ambitious young man. And so the very first day, the very first 10 to 15 minutes, we walked straight through the factory, went outside, and there's this shed out there with tubes in it. And the young guy went in there.
Was this a black guy or white?
White guy. White guy. And again, I always think, and I don't know, but I think he was one of the family members of that owned the business. Maybe that's me putting it together because how else would someone this young be in charge of anything? And so he gave me a shovel. and there was a drainage ditch in the back of Silver that had uh, dirt and stuff. And they wanted that cleaned out. And I thought about the time that Miss White told me that I would be no more than a ditch digger, a wino, what have you, hanging out on Washington Street. And when I put that shovel in the ground one time, I could not find anything within me. I couldn't find an ounce of anything to help me move that shovel. That's where I left it in the ground. I went right back to that place, right out the door. Told my father that you have to apologize to Mr. Lane. I can't do that work. I'm not going to do it.
How old were you at the time?
I must have been 17.
Okay.
I
Now,
must
do
have
you
been
remember if this was
17,
before?
18.
Okay. Your
It
birthday
was my
had come.
last, yeah,
Yeah, your birthday
it
had
was in
come.
my
Okay.
last years of school. In fact, I knew it was my last year because I had to make a decision. And I thought, well, okay, if I'm going to work in a factory and I know people who know people on the inside, and I might have an opportunity of working, not on an assembly line or,
Mhm.
maybe I have an opportunity to working my way up in some administrative job or something that's good, you know,
Mhm.
and so that was shattered,
But
when
now
I found out.
let me ask you now. Your father's working where at that time?
My father was at Alma desk.
Okay, so he's working on a factory.
Uh-huh.
You just went to a factory and walked out and told your dad you couldn't do this. What was your father's response to you?
He was okay with it.
Is that right?
He never, he says, well, I understand. He said,
Your father was an exceptional man. You know that, though.
oh my goodness, yeah.
Yes.
More than I knew
Then.
then.
Yeah.
More than I knew then.
I had the opportunity to meet and know your father. That's why I know he was an exceptional man. But I did not know that story, which proves even more for me that he was indeed an exceptional man. Okay, so now Bruce, you're retired. You're back home in High Point, and you're all of 38 years of age. Did you stay out of work, or did you come immediately to work, or what were your plans at that time?
At that time, when you get out, you can, if you have some leave saved up, you can continue getting. I had like 90 days, so I had planned to, vacation, take my time, not worry about much. But I did. We bought a little house over on West Willis, and you may remember something about that little raggedy house where we showed you pictures before. And I think,
So I think for people to understand, why? Tell them why you're saying I might remember that
well, you were representing me during the time,
of
and I
your
was
divorce from
my
your first one.
divorce, absolutely. And you were real concerned when I says, well, we just bought a house, and I had my ex-wife was in the house that we were in over in Greensboro, and I think you had before going. This was before going to court. You were putting everything together, and you had this worry that here I was getting divorced, moving into another house with a new wife, new house. What's going to happen with the ex-wife, the other house you have a mortgage? Oh my God, you bought. We're going to have to show the judge is going to compare the two, the new and improved Mrs. Davis.
I did not say that.
I know that's me talking. And the home, the new and improved home. And when you saw when you saw the pictures of this house, you was like, whew, because it was a diamond in the rough for real. It was as raggedy as they come. I was going to remodel that house. In fact, my mother-in-law came in there when I was working on it, and she shook her head. She was like, my daughter is not, I don't know what she's thinking, and I can see why, because when she walked in the kitchen, she could only see me from up here, because I was down on the dirt, putting a new seal. We had tore the whole kitchen floor out. because it was through. All the cabinets were out, and I was down in the dirt building a new sill so we could put a new floor in. And so that's the house that you saw that we had bought. You were relieved that it was, and Angela and I, we laugh about it today, that you were relieved that we had a clunker for a house. And but we made it through that. So I had a house to work on, to build up, and because I had a plan, buy as cheap as I could. They wanted, when the house was in bank owned it after foreclosure. And to show you how wise my mother was, they wanted 29,000. And I says, Mom, what do you think? She says, well, you can get it cheaper than that. The bank's got it. I said, well, I'm gonna offer them 25 or something like that, $4,000. She says, no. She says, I think you ought to offer them 15. I'm thinking, my mom really don't know. She don't know these things. Like, they're gonna cut it completely in half. I said, well, that's kind of embarrassing, but okay, I'm gonna throw 15 out there. Well, they signed the papers before the ink dried and sold it to me for 15. And I said, well, my mom's got to be the brightest woman in the world, the smartest person in the world.
Hasn't
And
been
so,
around the world like her son.
no, she hadn't traveled. I know these things. There's no way. She just don't understand. They don't do it like that. That's like giving me the house. And so we were able to go in, borrow money to fix it up, borrow money to start a business, because that was my ultimate goal, to never punch a clock, never work for anybody else. I'm military, that was it, and I'm going to be my own boss. And so we were able to do that. We remodeled that house, we took money out of it, the equity out, and started Kid Appeal Learning Center. And that's been 15 years now that we've had the business. And
Tell what Kid Appeal is.
Learning Center.
Learning
It's
Center.
it's a child care center, and again, we built it from the ground up. The first 5 years, we leased a place over on Greensboro Road, right next to the BP service station. And the owner says, "Well, I'll sell it to you after you've leased it 5 years." There's a story behind everything I got here, but I said
There was some issue with that ultimately.
there was some
Yeah.
issues with
Yeah.
that, because we got to the 48 month. And the contract says that within that time frame, we need to let each other know. So I says, look, I need to buy because I don't plan to rent. And so Gary Robinson, he says, well, Bruce, I don't think I'm ready to sell. I said, but you promised me you'd sell it to me. He says, I'm just enjoying this retirement. I'm just enjoying it. And, I couldn't get mad, because as a business-minded person, an entrepreneur, I understand, if you finally retire some debt, you want to enjoy life then. And so why sell that commercial property? So I said, okay. And so I went looking for property, and we went looking for places. And so I was truly blessed to find right down the street 2 houses. First, we got the one, and I went to my banker, Rick Bird, who was very good. He was at High Point Bank, and that's a whole nother story, because they're not like they used to be towards us. In fact, I bought things to you, and you said, Mr. Davis, black men don't get stuff like this, and the contracts ain't even signed, right? And I'd sign, I say, as long as we sign it, the money. And so that's the relationship we had at that time. But again, totally different. And so we bought the 2 houses on the corner there, on Greensboro Road, next to the bakery where they sell the bread. And Gary finally came back. He'd come every month to get that rent. And he says, well, Bruce, you decided what you're going to do. In 6 months, it rolled along, and we're finally got things arranged. And I'm thinking, I hope Gary will come on a day that I can show him what I'm doing. Well, as fate would have it, when we were tearing down the houses, You could see it from that place. So he says, Bruce, what are you going to do? You know, you got 6 months left. I says, Gary, let me show you something. We went out on the front, and I said, you see that house right down there where that big uh, uh, tractor getting ready to slam it, and the tractor hit the house and started pulling. I says, that's the new Caterpillar. And he looked at me. The man turned whiter than my shirt because he couldn't believe it. Well, I couldn't either. You know, show you how good God is, because there's no way I could do the things that I've been able to accomplish. There's just no way. And so we're talking 7,900 square feet, built just for early education, technology throughout the whole center. Our toddlers, twos, threes, and particularly threes and fours have access to computers and online. And so our kids start at a very early age playing with the mouse and playing with the computer screens and games and stuff like that, and researching the internet when they're 4 or 5, and in their after school programs when they come in. So we have had tremendous success. We've had some very difficult times, but yet and still the doors are still open, the lights are still on, and we still have kids who are learning every day. Kids in our community that the schools come back many times and say thank you so much, because we got the kids that come from your school are so much easier to work with and so well prepared for school. So that's what we now. Angela has not been. She'll tell you real quick. This is your dream, not mine. This is what you want to do. It's not what I want to do. She'll remind me of that. But she has got to be the best director in any center in this state. She is just that good, that knowledgeable. She was on the North Carolina Child Care Commission. Uh, she's she's great at running that facility.
She was great as a social worker.
Yes,
She was. I knew her
absolutely. Yeah.
then.
Okay.
So when you all first started, how many students you started out with at the daycare?
We opened up the
Children
doors with, I think it was 39 children, the
total.
first total.
And what do you have now?
We have about 115.
And how do they break down?
We have infants. We have 10 infants. That's all we're geared to take on. Although they say our space will hold 20, we want to keep quality. So we're turning down infants. We have
What's
six.
the age range when they say infant?
Infants are from 12 weeks old until they are about 18 months old.
Okay.
Then they move into the toddlers classroom. We only have room for six, and we have six. Okay. Then we have our twos. I think we have like 15 twos, somewhere between 13 and 15. And we're maxed out there. Our threes, we have, I think we're at the max on threes, which is about 18, I think. And then we have 54 4-year. Then we have, and our 4-year-olds are what we call NC Pre-K, which mirrors the school's programs. Their curriculum is just like the public schools curriculum. Their teachers are certified above and beyond, actually, because they have to go back and get the birth through kindergarten. So they're talking, you know, uh, college 4-year degree plus 2, in most cases. Um, and then associate teachers. We have 18 employees altogether, and so but those pre-K runs like a 8 o'clock in the morning to 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and school is out.
Okay.
And the rest of them all day long. And then we have an after-school program where we go and pick up about 16 children. Once they finish at public schools, our buses go and pick them up and bring them back to the center. Thank you.
Now the 8 a.m. to 2, do the children have to leave the facility or can they go into another part of your program?
We do have what we call wraparound,
Okay.
and that's the after-school program for 4-year-olds who wrap around and stay in the afternoon.
Okay.
And so that you might find we probably have, in fact, yeah, we have a whole class of wraparounds. and that's about 14 wraparounds in addition to the 16 after school. So that number is, like I say, well above 110 to 15, something.
It's interesting for you to say, and I never would have guessed it that this was not Angela's dream because she is so good at it. What is her dream, and have you promised to follow her dream after this
You
at
know,
any point?
you know what? I made the mistake, big mistake, a long time ago, of telling her, "Well, that dream won't be right," and I should have never said that. She wanted, and I come from an entrepreneur. That's the place I come from. My mother being an entrepreneur, all of her 13 siblings have had a candy store or something.
Daycare, because
Daycare.
I know one of your aunts well.
That's right. So all of us, this entrepreneur spirit is in our family. Well, my wife was talking about a nonprofit of working with women, young women who, because of her social worker background,
Yeah,
and when she said that a long time ago, I was like, well, I don't know how we can make money or sustain that type of operation. I didn't know much about nonprofits and all the grant writing and da 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 da. And so now when I mention we really need to do the things that you want to do, she quickly shut it down and said, no, I'm not going to do that. You told me. And I'm like, no, I didn't mean it like that. Um, but I can't get her re-engaged in what she wanted to do.
well, your
Yeah,
masters that you're working on, what is it in?
nonprofit studies.
Exactly. So
So
maybe you can go and champion that cause for her, and the way she follows you so well, she'll move on into her dream anyway.
yeah, that's right. And I hope I can do that. I really do, because she deserved to be able to follow her dreams, do the things that really, because we talk about it, that if you're doing something you love, then you'll never work a day in your life. However that saying goes.
Yeah,
And so she's under a lot of pressure with all of the regulations in childcare,
yeah.
and the fact that she's a perfectionist makes it even worse.
Okay.
They've got all of these regulations and rules and regulations, and she's a rule stickler, and so she's in it like that. And there's a lot of pressure keeping all that together. And 18 employees, 18 of them being women. Can you imagine?
Now, I know Angela is the director. What's your title there?
My title, I do windows, I unstop the toilets. You know, I do anything but the keeping the children and changing Pampers. I don't do any of that. But if a toilet goes out, if the light goes out, and then I get the opportunity to manage the actual business side of childcare. There's a
Okay.
business side, and then there's directing the operations,
Uh-huh.
and so I pay the bills and do the receivables and bookkeeping, and then turn it over to our accountant. So I do have a job, but and I drive the bus every
Okay.
morning.
Okay, you do.
I'm the
So what
best
time?
dressed bus driver out there. And they'll tell you that. Ask any of the bus drivers. That's the best dressed bus driver.
So what time does your day start?
We get up every morning at 5 a.m. and we're driving the bus because it takes us a while to get ready. And then we're still late
Because you
getting
got to
over
be the
there.
best dressed.
I got
Okay.
to be the best dressed. So at 7:10, I'm rolling my bus out. And
You drive your bus home or you go to the
no, I
center?
go to the center. Go
Okay.
to the center and pick up. I have one bus driver that goes one way, and then I take some kids to school over at Montloop, drop them off, and then I pick up some 4-year-olds to bring them to the program. Next year, I don't think we're going to do the pickup piece. That's been quite a challenge. Um, of Let me back up. Had we not this last classroom that we have right now of 18 students, have we not chosen to do pickup service? These are the kids at the bottom of the bottom. No transportation. Parents who, in some case, I see some who really want the best. And then I see those who could care less.
Okay.
In one of the coldest mornings of this winter, I stopped by to pick a child up at a house that's always dark. The child comes out of the house, no coat on.
Was there anybody watching the child to get onto the bus?
Yeah, they dropped the coat out of the second floor down on top of it. She put the coat on. Now we're supposed to have them sign. So I'm gonna drop this. We're gonna drop this parent anyway. But stuff like that. One kid came out, had his shoes in his hands, and his feet were so cold he was trying to step on his pants to keep his feet warm. These are I'm talking.
How old are we talking about?
4-year-olds.
4-year-olds.
And see, I can't imagine sending my 4-year-old out like that.
Exactly.
And so, but
not
again,
going out to the bus with them.
not going. Yeah, and so we want those kids that some of these kids at schools turn down. See, this program is supposed to be for those who have these barriers. But our schools have gotten to the point to where they're selective. They don't want this one. They don't want that one. They want
and if you don't have a parent advocating,
then
the child just
totally gets nothing.
Gets nothing.
And so this is what we're dealing with, but we're going to have to make it's going to be a tough decision to whether we have that bus moving out next year like that, because the rest of them get there. They get there, 36 of them, their parents bring them in and, no problem. And but it's just that last class reaching down to get those who really don't have anything to look forward to.
So Bruce, you have any idea how long you all plan to keep this daycare running?
No, but I do want to put together an exit strategy because of what I saw my mother go through. My mother had a stroke because there's so much pressure in this business as rooms continue to grow, and there's still more rooms and more rooms. I'm looking at putting together an exit strategy right now, and I am hoping. I've always wanted to see this building paid off since we built it. If I could retire that debt and then get to enjoy some of it, or sell the whole thing and be able to walk away. So right now, my 56th birthday is in a couple of days. Sunday, yeah. And the
24th, March 24th.
March 24th.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And so I had always thought that at 60 I would be retired completely. But unless we sell out, here in the near future, that window is closing real quick. So if we set a 10-year exit strategy together, we've got some things that we've got to, of course, the economy hit everybody.
Exactly.
So we're having the best year we have had. But what that equates to in today's economy, the best year is climbing up out of the hole.
Okay.
You see, so we're not out of the hole. We're just, at least we're not going deeper. We're moving in the right direction. So as soon as I can put together some type of good financial plan with an exit strategy, then that's my goal within 10 years to be done with this phase.
Okay. All right. So you talk about in 10 years, but as I introduced you as County Commissioner Bruce Davis. Bruce Lee, you'll take that, huh?
Yeah, I'll take it.
But let's talk about your political life. When did you decide that you uh, that you wanted to be in the public service,
Um,
other than the Marines,
yeah, we
as
have to be,
elected officials?
yeah, we have to be careful when we speak things out to the universe, because uh, you know, sometimes they will come back. And I did speak elected official out into the universe, and it has come back.
When did you
And,
do this? When did you think such a
and when in 1995, they were having a celebration for me to retire from the Marine Corps. And I was giving this great speech about how great the Marine Corps has been in military life. And someone asked me, okay, tomorrow you're going to wake up, you're not going to put on a uniform, you're not going to see anybody with stripes and bars, you're not going to know who's in charge. What are you going to do? And I says, well, I think I'll just run for mayor. And so, joke. Well, here it comes. You know, county commissioners, and I kind of got tossed into that when I moved back to High Point. I got with the Black Leadership Roundtable.
What made you decide to do that?
Here's I had checked out the NAACP. You know, in the military, you're not allowed. First of all, you're not allowed to belong to civic organizations such as NAACP and all that. You can't. You're not supposed to do that. So I've always wanted to be more involved in my Black community, be more involved with who I am, my people, and fight for the rights of my people in some kind of way. And so I started looking in High Point for what's going on in High Point. NAACP, I always question people, how's the NAACP here? What is it about? Because I didn't know much about it. Here I am, 38, and don't know anything about the NAACP. And so somebody says, you get comments, people say, they're not doing anything. They're not doing this. And so one day I was over at Washington Terrace Park, and Talmadge Killings, you know Talmadge?
I would do it.
Okay, Talmadge Killings, a friend who learned to become to be a friend. But anyway, Talmadge didn't know him at the time. He walked up, and because I had a Marine Corps hat on, and so he started a conversation. Not a Marine Corps, ball cap, said USMC. And he says, how come you're not with us? I says, well, who are you? He says, we're Black Leadership Roundtable. I said, well, what is that? He says, well, we get together every Tuesday night and we talk about issues in our community, and how to change things. I said, well, good. I might check you out. And so I went to a meeting, and you remember Reverend Fells?
Yeah.
Okay, very outspoken preacher. He's dead and gone.
Yeah.
Bernita Sims,
who is now the first
who
black
is now
mayor,
the first Black mayor.
got your job. Yeah.
Got my job, exactly. And Joe Austin, Vicky Austin, a couple others, Antoine, can't think of his name, but Lowry, Dan Reynolds, Chanel,
his wife.
now his wife. That was the Black Leadership Roundtable. And they were talking about issues in High Point and how we should address it. And so I thought, well, this is good. We're talking about, the things that's interesting to me and how we're going to fix them. And for 3 years, we met every Tuesday night religiously. I mean, not the first and second or the third and fourth Tuesday, every Tuesday night at 7:30, 8 o'clock, somebody had to go get the chicken. And we would sit there and we'd eat chicken, and then we'd talk about things that we need to do. We set out to rename a street in High Point, Martin Luther King Drive. Went before the planning board. At that time, High Point's planning and zoning had the authority for street naming. We went to the planning and zoning, and we were organized. We had press conferences, we had it all. And we went to that meeting in that chamber. Everybody stepped up, made their speech who was supposed to make a speech. So I had written a speech or some words to comments, and I went up there and I made those comments. And of course, I had practice with speaking as a recruiter. That's what I did. And I mean, it was like the whole chamber went up in applause. You know, it was like, okay, here's my moment. And you know, thinking all good about myself. And so I says, well, maybe there's a chance for me that maybe this is something, you know, politics. Well, that night they changed College Drive to Martin Luther King Drive. 5 minutes later, they undid it. So that street was Martin Luther King Drive for about 5 minutes. Okay, so that's a little bit of history. That's you know, piece of history nobody would know that it was named. Someone in the audience gave some sign to the council sitting up there that this wasn't going to happen. Okay. And I'm not going to call any names because I don't know for sure, but they videoed the whole thing. And we sat in the meeting and we heard everything and all the speeches. And so at that time, then, none of us had been on any boards, any commissions, anything. And we said, look, if we're ever going to make any changes, we're going to have to get on the inside. Okay. And become a part of the board, run for office, this and that. And shortly after then, Donnie Donovan on county commissioners took ill, and they were looking for a replacement. And John Parks was going to run. Donnie Donovan endorsed John Parks. I didn't know Coach Donovan. I picked up the phone and called him. And I says, Mr. Donovan, I says, why would you endorse John Parks? He says, who is this again? I said, my name is Bruce Davis. He says, well, I don't know you. And we got through the conversation that I might be interested in the seat. I really didn't have an interest, but Gillespie, and he knows it, daycare center, says, you need to be the one running for that seat. Well, I didn't give it much thought, but he spoke it into existence. Said, you need to be the one. I didn't even know what a county commissioner was, to be honest. Okay. And then, so he says, well, Mr. Donovan said, was, you sound like a fine gentleman. I wish I had the opportunity to meet you. The next day, he died. The next day, Mr. Donovan died. And it was in the paper, and John Parks had his blessings, and then an article.
For the benefit of people looking at, John Parks is an
older white gentleman, had been on the board and was ousted by Trudy Wade and, you know, all that thing. And so he pretty much thought he deserved it because he had been on the board. And then I didn't know much about commissioners' business or anything. Didn't know Skip Austin at the time. But I picked up the paper that talked about Mr. Donovan passing, but he endorsed John Parks. And Skip, as he always do, makes a comment, I can't believe you can't find a black person in High Point to do this, or something like that. Okay. And that next morning was filing period. No, that day we picked up the paper, Angela, and I said, look, put on your Sunday's best. And this is true. I'm going to put on a suit. We're going down to file for the seat. Just like that. I was scared that the round table was going to say, well, why would you be the one? Or other people, why would you do that? I had no idea what I was getting into. I didn't even know that there was a paycheck. Skip says, well, you know, you get, I'm like, oh, you get paid for this? And I said, okay. And we went down.
What was this, in 2002?
This was in 2001.
2001.
April
okay.
2001. And so we went down to the Board of Elections, and lo and behold, John Parks and Bill Horney, you know Horney, was down there. Horney was his finance or his campaign manager, I think. And John Parks, I didn't know him uh, other than his name and had seen his picture. And when I walked in and I was filling out the paperwork, he walked in and he says, "Are you gonna run for an office?" And I says, "Yeah." He said, "What office?" "A District 1." And he says, "Well, that's the office I was gonna run." And John Parks, I don't know if you've engaged him, but he likes to get real close in your face. I don't like anybody all up in my face, but here he was staring me down, trying to intimidate me, I guess. And
I've not had that experience. I know him, but I've not
oh
had that
yeah,
experience
yeah,
yet.
he's real like that. And so I says, "No, I'm going to run for District 1." He said, "Well, that's the seat." I says, "Well," I says, "Well, I tell you what, Mr. Parks," I says, "regardless to who, win or lose, as long as they do the right thing for my community," I said, "I don't care." You know, at that moment, Bill Horney stepped in front of him and shook my hand like that and introduced himself. John Parks walked out, never filled out the paperwork. Bill Horney went out behind him. They never filled out the paperwork. And the white lady back there behind the counter was on the phone calling the news. This was new to me. Next thing I know, the news and everybody's showing up, and she's telling them who. And so from then on, it's been a whole new different kind of thing because I've never anticipated, never did it for that reason, for no reason of any recognition or anything. I wanted to help fix some of the things in our community, represent my people. And that's what it has been. So um, April, they had a special election to fill his seat. Even though we were filing to run in the primaries, someone had to be in the seat now.
Right.
And so the Democratic Party called a precinct meeting. You had to form the precincts. To vote, each precinct must have a chair, vice chair, secretary. Well, precincts had to be formed also. Our precincts, we have a trouble organizing our precincts. But I called a meeting, me and a few people. We did what they named it cluster uh, uh, forming. They call it cluster, and then they outlawed it after we did it.
Okay.
So I've been known to set some trends that people I stumble over these things because I'm not that smart. I just stumble over it, and folks like Jake Freilich, who've been in the Democratic Party
Yeah.
forever.
Yeah.
After he saw me forming these precincts right there in the city council, okay, you guys are precinct this, you guys are precinct 2, you're 12, you're right there, cluster forming. And Jake walked up to me and he said, "I've been in the Democratic Party a long time. Would you mind if I be a chair of this precinct?" I said, "You gonna vote for me?" He says, "Yeah, I'll vote for you." I said, "Then you're it then." And now who am I? Some little guy, from the projects, and I'm telling Jake Fraley, "Sure, if you're gonna vote for me, you can chair that precinct." And that's what happened. And we formed those precincts. And when we had to make presentations, we had Ben Collins wants to run for the seat. Ben Collins tried to get someone to nominate him, and they had it planned out. Someone was going to nominate him. They're back there going like this, and they never would. Tom Terrell, a white friend of mine, classmate. He says, "I'm going to be the first. I want to nominate Bruce Davis. And I want to be the first one, go on record to be the first to nominate him and the first to vote, cast a vote for him." And I got up and I did my 3-minute impromptu. Military training has been great. Being a recruiter, being able to public speak, all that stuff. When we are doing what I tell my son right now, whatever you're doing now, God is preparing you for what you're going to do later.
Yeah.
So be careful at what you do and how you handle what he's giving. And so all of that training helped me to put on this nice, good, strong presentation for them to be convinced that this is the guy we want to be our county commissioner. So I got the nomination and I was the commissioner from April the 1st on through down until the primaries and then the actual election, which was, wait a minute, 2001, 2002 was the election.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so I got to hold that seat. And then I ran for my first actual election because I fulfilled the unexpired term of Donnie Donovan. And then from then on, every 4 years, I've been reelected, I think, 4 times, three on my four.
Okay. Now, throughout your early years on the county commission, Guilford County Commission, will our county commissioners known for battling? I mean, that has been historical, the situation there. But for the first time, probably since you've been sitting, it is no longer controlled by the Democrats. This last election in 2012 put the Republicans in the majority. How has that been? How many Democrats do we have now?
Okay, we have a board of 9, and the 5 Republicans have the majority. There's 4 Democrats. So far, again, it has been a new experience. When I went into office, Democrats had control, had power. We set the budget. We decided if we didn't like something, we decided the entire thing, what direction we're going. And then later along, we started with a bipartisan leadership. You notice we softened up and we had Steve Arnold, hard right Republican, vice chair, Skip Austin, hard left Democrat chair. So we had that going on. Then it was
There
Skip
was one
and
other thing
Linda.
I want you to speak to, and I don't mean to interrupt you there.
Sure.
But even when the Democrats were in control, you had some experienced Republicans there.
Yes.
I take it that because of this recent election, that has also switched. That the new people aren't that experienced, but you got the Democrats with heavily experienced Democrats.
Exactly.
If that factors in at all, factor that in as you talk.
That certainly factors in because I'm the senior Democrat on the board now, and with us selecting a new manager, which they have already pretty much decided, and we went through a process that was laid out, and I feel like had we followed that process, we would be electing or hiring a different manager than the one that we're about to hire tonight. In fact, we meet tonight and you will see a different manager that I would have or that a Democratic board would have chosen.
Someone different than what you all would have chosen.
Yes, the one that you'll see named the manager tonight. He's a very conservative, coming out of a smaller county with smaller budgets, smaller everything. Everything is against the grain. As to the number 2 person who should be the manager, who has worked with $800 million budget, we're at 558, 506, $600 million budget. He's worked at 800 million. The one that we're going to hire has worked with about 250 million. The one we should hire has had 3,500 employees. Guilford County has 2,500. The one we're going to hire about 15, if that many employees. The one that we should be hiring as a mixture minority under his leadership. Guilford County has a mixture, good balance. county this one's coming out of have very little, and his thing is he can't find blacks who qualify. That's the
In
old
this day
excuse.
and time,
That's
still.
even back when they say we can't find blacks to be officers in the Marine Corps,
Exactly.
to fly our planes and this and that, and they're here, they're everywhere. You're just not looking. So the only strike against the one that we're hiring is the color of his skin. Let's put that out. So I don't know how I'm gonna put it out tonight on camera on live TV, but I'm gonna put it out there. The only strike against him is the color of his skin. He's a brilliant young man. Brilliant. Could take Guilford to the next level. But since we have this Republican board, and we have seen from city, state to federal, this hard right-wing, neoconservative, whatever you want to call it, wanting to turn the clock back, that tells us the direction that this board is willing to go. So, in a sense, when you look at it, being the senior Democrat, I know how they must have felt when we were driving the train. But when we were driving the train, we were more fair about who we let get on than saying, this is exclusive. You're not going to get on this. We're going to do it our way, and that's it. And so, again, I know how they feel, but because it's going to be done, and
Y'all are just outnumbered.
we're just outnumbered. So nothing changed in the direction it should. Things are changing, but not the way they should. We're going in reverse.
And I see what you mean when you say how can, so as not to leave any, make any assumption. The person that you're saying is hired is that is being hired tonight is white.
He's white.
The one that you think should have been is also white.
No, color of his skin disqualified him. He's black.
Oh, they okay. I see. Yeah.
He's brilliant and black. We interviewed him, the final four. He blew everybody out of the water. And
Where's he
all
from?
of the Republicans know that he's up in the Norfolk area.
Okay.
He's in an area where you got shipyards, where you've got 75% of his assets are public owned, so he can't tax it. Yet still he's able to do some great things. You see, you take a person like that and put him in Guilford County, he could take us to that next level. And he articulated that so well that either most of the new commissioners didn't understand it, maybe it was beyond, their comprehension, but I believe it's more of they did not want to be board that hired this black. You have an opportunity to hire a white conservative out of Brunswick County.
So now, what's the experience level of the other Democrats on the board?
Carolyn Coleman, she's been there just as
Black
long
female.
as black female. She was there 6 months after. I think I'm about 6 months before
Seniority
she was
over her,
seniority
okay.
over her. Not much difference there. And she's a champion in civil rights issues. She's been out there on the battlefield a long time.
All her life.
Yeah,
Really?
all of her life. And then you have Kay Cashin, and Kay is
White female.
white female. Kay she wants to get along. She wants things to work good, and
But
I
she's been on it.
understand that. But but she also should understand, and so should the chairman, who's a white female, Linda Shaw, should understand that this guy that she is voting for, and Kay is going to vote just to get along to get along. But Linda has been made aware that this guy is not a friend to white women, black women, any women at all. Because if you look at the folks around him, and you look that there's 2 complaints been filed that have recently been filed against him from 2
Both
white
by
white females. So this is going to be interesting. She's been made aware of that, but yet and still she's, and maybe it's because they're pressured by the Rhinoceros Times, the local newspapers, and
they're worried about re-election.
Worried about re-election. Exactly.
As opposed to taking care of business within this term, then they're thinking about the next term.
The next term. Exactly.
And we all pay the price.
We all pay the price. We sit on the sideline, and we have to take it the way they give it to us. And we've got to like it pretty much, or you speak out about it. So that's my plan, to speak out. It won't do any good, but it'll make people aware of what is going on, and as opposed to me just voting to get along.
Yeah.
You said in the beginning, we very controversial board a while back, and then we softened up because of bipartisan leadership. I tried to convince this board, new board, to have bipartisan leadership. Linda Shaw says, well, Bruce, the Republicans hadn't had it in so many years, and we really need a chance to just have everything and do this and do that. I says, yeah, Linda, but we have advanced so far. Do we turn back just because you didn't have it? What's most important? Advancement? Do we learn as people and society? Do we say, well, it was good? Slavery was good to some people.
Yeah.
Do we go back because it was good for?
No, the worst still, that some of them never got a chance to be the master.
Right.
So now that they're back in control, should we go back
Should
to
we
slavery
go
and give
back
them a
so
chance to
they
be
can have-
masters?
My goodness.
Yeah.
And so that's what we deal with in our local politics, and I would imagine is having the same effect exponentially in more higher powered places, on the state, federal level.
Surely the
that's what
state
we're
level,
at.
because we predominantly Republican in everything.
Exactly.
The legislature in Raleigh is,
Yeah.
governor, the Supreme Court. I mean,
it's the price we will pay. We may not feel it for another 10 years. If we're feeling it now, imagine what 10 years of their having it their way. Imagine what 10 years would be like.
I think we have to go way out beyond. We'll probably feel it for at least 40 years.
40 years.
At least that. Probably longer, but at least that.
Yeah. It'll have a long lasting impact.
Yeah, you can't turn that big ship around. That's the other part of it. But well, I wish you luck with that tonight.
Thank you.
Is there any way that you can make the public aware of what the other candidate offered and what we could have had?
I'm struggling with how to do that
if at all,
professionally. Because as you said, and we've talked about it, with the board seems to be getting along real well. It may be time to get back, pull out my gloves again. It may be that time, because if I wait, it's too late. And I think that some kind of way, although we don't talk personnel matters in public, I've got to let people know that we had an opportunity, and had the process been fair, we would have hired
More qualified.
the more qualified. So if you can give me some, yeah,